What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with our college football Week 8 preview and picks. As always, I got Ty joining me here, our college analyst. And before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Get us to 200 subscribers. We're almost close to 150, which is almost halfway to 200, where we'll be doing that autograph item giveaway. It could be some cards, could be a jersey, could be an autograph baseball, football, whatever. But make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. That's all you have to do to be entered. But before we get into the picks, we got to look at last week. And we had our biggest week of games last week with 15, and it didn't fare well for either of us. A lot of us, well, not a lot of us. I took all the upsets, and Ty took all the favorites essentially, and we still got to the same place. But Ty, out of all the games besides the Alabama Tennessee, because everyone already knows about that, which one was probably the most surprising to you?
I mean, you could go a lot of different ways here. There were a lot of surprising results to me. I thought TCU's win was pretty impactful to the college football playoff race now that they're undefeated, got through a big obstacle. I guess I was surprised that Mississippi State went down. I thought they were really finding their groove, and then my Broncos just continued to let me down. So I'll say Utah as well. That was probably the second most surprising result of the week after the Tennessee win. So a lot of big games this week.
Yeah, for me, I'll go the other way. Not biggest surprise in the game, but I would say biggest, storyline going into this week is the Michigan Penn State game. You and me thought that it would be a closer game than it was. And obviously, it was just complete domination. Penn State gave up more rushing yards in this game than they have all season. And Michigan obviously looked like a top five team like they should. Another storyline is Oklahoma. I think just absolutely throttling Kansas, really putting all those points on them after a terrible week against Texas. So they had a good bounce back week as well. And Illinois, the Big Ten team that no one's talking about because, well, it's a pretty much Ohio State race and obviously Michigan to the Big Ten championship, but they can't play someone on the same side, which is a whole different video conversation talking about if college football should have conferences, different conferences in their conferences, divisions, and all that. You got Illinois, pretty solid year, and if they keep it going, we'll see them possibly face Michigan later this year. And for our first game this week, Cincinnati going on the road to 3-3 SMU. This line is a little bit tricky. Cincinnati has had a fairly easy schedule so far to this point, where SMU has played the toughest of the tough so far in their conference, and it doesn't get any easier this week. But that's why that line's so close. I'm still going to go with Cincinnati on the road. It just feels like the Bearcats are having a very good year. Obviously not as good as last year because of, all the talent they had on that team, but still at 5-1, they're a very quiet team.
Yeah, I'd say Cincinnati is probably the favorite right now to represent the group of five in a New Year's Six bowl. Win here would go a long way, and I think they get it. They are really just flying below the radar this year. Nobody's talking about them after that week one loss, but they're still a really good and talented team, and I think you'll see that this week.
And then I'm going to go with the first and probably biggest upset of the week in our video here. I am going to go with Syracuse on the road in Clemson. And I think it's like 37 games that Clemson's won in a row at home. Well, streaks are meant to be broken. And if it's any time, I think it's, right now, just because of Syracuse, how good they've been playing. Clemson, they have struggled in this year's past, a rough start to the year, but hey, they're still 7-0, getting wins, getting it done. But will it come up to bite them in this game? And I think this is the one where it will because Syracuse, has had a good showing. Clemson had a squeak by Wake Forest on the road, Florida State on the road. And I think now that they're getting kind of comfortable in the conference, I think this could be one of those trap games, even though it doesn't look like a trap game. I think it could be one, and that's where the Orange get them.
Yeah, I just don't see Syracuse moving the ball really at all against Clemson. I don't see them having any success against that defense. I know Syracuse plays some really good defense themselves, but Clemson just has a little bit more firepower on offense. And that home streak, 37 wins in a row, hard to pick against that for sure. So uh, Syracuse, I wouldn't be surprised if they go in there and compete and cover, but I don't think they get the road win.
And then a game that should be a complete domination. Iowa probably won't even score more than 10. And if you're a betting man, I would take the Iowa under for total points. I have no clue what it is, but it doesn't matter at this point. They can't score straight up. And Ohio State, we've seen them score a ton. Their strength of schedule has been very bad besides the week one game to Notre Dame, but look at how they've turned out, just an average team. And this is just another game for Ohio State to get undefeated, keep that record going, and for that potential matchup with Michigan at the end of the year at 11-0.
This is a horrible matchup for Iowa. That's why the line is as big as it is. Once Iowa gets down 7-0, which they will, the game is over because if Iowa is trying to play catch up with Ohio State, they have no chance. And that offense just cannot move the ball. And obviously, Ohio State likes to move very fast. They like to score as quick as they can. And Iowa, they like to control the clock, keep the game in the 20s or even below that. So it's going to get out of hand fast. And this one, Ohio State will just post in the second half. It'll be a blowout.
And then moving to 3:30, we got BYU on the road going against 6-1 Liberty without Malik Willis. Yes, so that is correct. And they're still playing pretty solid football. 6-1 this year. I don't know too much about this team. I've seen BYU play a few times now, and I'm just not sold on this team. Early in the year, they were battling some tough teams, getting, tough losses, but that loss to Notre Dame kind of sold me. And that's why I got to go with Liberty at home. I think this is a good line to bet. Maybe if you don't go money line, take the spread. I think this will be a close game to the wire. And I think Liberty will come on out top.
Yeah, I would definitely at least take Liberty's spread on this game if you're betting, but I really think they're going to win the game outright. They have a great coach in Hugh Freeze, and they're just a really underrated program. And I agree, I'm not super impressed with BYU. Obviously, they had that one really big win over Baylor, but Baylor's 3-3 now, and that game was in overtime at home. So I'm just not totally sold on the Cougars this year, and I think Liberty's very underrated, and they'll get the upset.
And then probably one of the biggest SEC games this year, besides last week's game of Tennessee, Alabama. You got Ole Miss and LSU. Ole Miss finally has to go on the road and prove it to not just us, but the whole nation that this team is really good. And judging from it, LSU's 5-2, should be 6-1 if they can kick an extra point at the beginning of the year, which people forget about. Ole Miss, it's hard to believe that they're not favored on the road at least by 1 point, 2 point. And you said before we started this that Ole Miss was favored at the beginning of the week, but now it's shifted to LSU. So Vegas knows, they always know, and that's why I got to go with LSU.
Yeah, I've been saying it for weeks now. I'm just not totally sold on Ole Miss, even though they're 7-0. Feels like they haven't really played a complete game. One side of the ball seems like it just doesn't show up every week. And I think that's going to come back to bite them here. I think LSU coming off that big win in the swamp last week, underrated win. I think coming back home, they've really found their stride now, and they'll get the upset of Ole Miss. Well, I guess not really an upset, but they'll get the win.
Probably a really good Big 12 standings game at the end of the year, which will mean a lot. You got Texas going on the road to Oklahoma State. Lost to TCU last week in, an excellent game there. Could be 6-0, could be even bigger this week for them. But, that's not the storyline here. It's Texas and Quinn Ewers. When he's played, this Texas team is a completely different team. And they could be 7-0 at this point if Ewers is healthy. That's the story for next year when he's still there. So if you're talking this year, what they got on paper, and after Oklahoma State showing last week, they didn't sell me that they should be, in the same category as Texas when Ewers is healthy. So I got to go with Texas.
Yeah, I said it last week. I think Texas is going to win out going into that Big 12 championship. I think they'll be 10-2. So obviously that means I think they'll win this game. I think Texas is a top 15 and maybe even a top 10 team in terms of just the best teams right now. And I think they're going to be kicking themselves for that Alabama loss at the end of the year because I think that might be what keeps them out of the playoff. But I think they go in there and get a win and really make a statement on Saturday.
And then probably the biggest game of the week for college football playoff, AP poll, coaches poll, and of course, the Pac-12. I'm going with UCLA on the road. The slipper will still fit after this game, after this year's team, the hard to not root for team that only has 3,000 fans in the stands, is going to win this game on the road. And, UCLA has proved it time after time this year that they can compete with the big dogs. In Oregon, if you're looking at them, they're a completely different team after week one. The 3 points against Georgia getting absolutely throttled. Then Oregon's 5-0, completely different team, taking it to everybody, playing in one close game, but other than that, they've really been dominant. And it's a good matchup. Nobody probably thought that here in week 8 that this would be the key matchup of the week before the season started. And here it is, and I'm going with the Bruins on the road.
Yeah, UCLA, kind of similar to Ole Miss, is an undefeated team. I'm just not quite sold on yet. I know they have that impressive win over Utah, but I think going on the road is going to be really difficult for them this week. Bo Nix, a guy that no one has really talked about this year, he
Mhm.
has looked way better than he did ever at Auburn. He's not turning the ball over. He's not making stupid throws. He's just really found himself at Oregon, and I think you'll see that on Saturday. I think he's set up for a big day against this UCLA defense, and I think Oregon gets the home win.
And then, well, we don't want to talk about this one for too much. I'm taking the Broncos. I mean, it's just gonna be a lock every week, even if they lose.
Yeah, Western is terrible, but so is Miami, Ohio. So maybe they actually win this time.
At 7, well, this is like Alabama's '08 Redeem Team game here. If you want to talk about that in the Netflix documentary. Tough road loss last week. And if you're Nick Saban, I'm sure that he gave his players everything this week, and it was not fun to be in the meeting room on Monday. So with that being said, Alabama will win by a million.
Yeah, I think Alabama covers. Alabama coming off a loss. I don't know any stats on it, but I know they're always very dangerous and no one wants to play them after they lose. And I think that'll be the same here. There's too much talent on this team for them to be trending down. So I think they'll come right back and get a huge win.
7:30, we have a game that probably could have been bigger than it was last week if both these teams would have won. It would have been 6-0 versus 5-1. Big storyline for both divisions in the conference, but it's not as big anymore. But it is still a very important game for Penn State and Minnesota because they pretty much have to win out to even have a shot at making it to the championship game in the Big Ten. But I think Minnesota's hopes are going to go to bed here with Penn State winning. I think way more than 4. I think this will be a double digit game.
Yeah, I like the over in this game actually, and also obviously I like Penn State, but neither of these teams stopped the run at all last week. Illinois ran all over Minnesota, and obviously Michigan just obliterated Penn State on the ground. So I think both offenses will have their way for the most part, but the talent for Penn State just slightly outweighs Minnesota. And you don't just walk into Penn State on the road at night and come out with an easy win. So that's what's making me lean towards Penn State.
And then our last game of the week, we have Kansas State going on the road to TCU. And if TCU can win this one, I think this stops their stretch of playing ranked opponents in a row. And if they win this, there's no doubt in my mind that they have solidified themselves as a top contender in the college football playoff race. Going to 7-0 with only 5 games left and a Big 12 championship in mind. And you've beaten almost all the good teams in the conference so far. They got to be up there. And I think it's going to continue here. I'm liking TCU. They're gutting out close wins. They can play close games no matter if it's home or away. And this time it's at home. I just don't see them losing.
Yeah, I know they're coming off a big win, so it could be tough to get back up for another game, but I just think all that experience for TCU and playing at home for this one is going to be just enough. I think they'll win a very close game, and I think people are going to be very surprised at their first ranking in the college football playoff rankings. I think they'll be ranked very high, much higher than people are expecting, because this would be their third ranked win in a row. So I think you got to watch out for TCU. I don't know if I'm sold on them. But if you beat 3 ranked teams in 3 weeks, you deserve to be ranked very high, and I think they will be.
And that's going to be it for our video today. Once again, hit that subscribe button down below to be entered into our giveaway. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.
She never called back.